Science has taken the throne in our culture. People don't just respect it, they worship it. The lab coat has replaced the priest's robe. The microscope has replaced the pulpit. And anyone who dares say God is the author of truth is mocked as primitive, uneducated, or blind. But here's the irony. The same people who laugh at faith are standing on a worldview that takes leaps of faith far greater than Christianity. They believe nothing exploded into everything. They believe lifeless matter magically birthed life. They believe mindless chaos wrote the code of DNA. They believe morality can come from molecules. That isn't rational. It's religious devotion to a false god called science. And like every false god before it, it will collapse. Science is incredible. No one denies that. It gives us medicine, technology, and discovery. But science has limits it cannot cross, and when people try to make it ultimate, it crumbles under the weight of questions it cannot answer. The origin of life. Even Nobel-winning scientists admit they are clueless how non-living chemicals became living cells. They've tried to simulate it in labs for decades and failed. The fine-tuning of the universe? The laws of physics are balanced so perfectly that the odds of it being random are beyond comprehension. So atheists invent the multiverse, a theory with no evidence, just to avoid the obvious fingerprints of design. And then there's consciousness. Science can track brain activity, but it cannot explain why you know you exist, why you love, why you hope. At its best, science explains how the engine runs, but it cannot tell you who built the car, why it exists, or where it's going. It can't answer the deepest questions of the human heart. Everywhere you look in creation, you see order, symmetry, and precision. Mathematics governs the universe. DNA carries a language far more complex than any computer code, and the odds of that order appearing by chance are absurd. Fred Hoyle, an atheist astrophysicist, once admitted that the probability of life emerging by chance was so impossible that it looked like a super-intellect has monkeyed with physics. He saw the fingerprints of God, but refused to call him by name. Here's the blunt truth. Chaos doesn't create order. Explosions don't create symphonies. A junkyard doesn't produce smartphones. If you see writing, you know there's a writer. If you see code, you know there's a coder. And if you see design, you know there's a designer. The Bible reveals who he is. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. John 1:3. The so-called facts of science don't weaken Christianity. They are evidence that Jesus Christ is behind it all. Science can build rockets. It can split atoms. It can map genomes, but it cannot tell you whether you should do any of those things. Detached from God, science is a weapon with no conscience. History proves it. Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, explicitly atheist regimes, murdered tens of millions using reason and progress as their excuse. That's not an accident. That's the logical conclusion of a worldview where humans are just chemical accidents. If there is no God, then morality is just opinion. Love is just a biological trick, and murder is just one collection of atoms rearranging another. Science without God cannot give you meaning, value, or dignity. But the gospel anchors morality in the holy character of God himself. Human life matters because we are made in his image. Love matters because he is love. Justice matters because his throne is established on righteousness. Take God away, and all you're left with is chemicals in motion. Here's where science hits its wall: death. It can prolong life, but it cannot stop the grave. It can describe the decay of your cells, but it cannot stop your coffin from filling with dust. And yet, the same people who insist life has no ultimate purpose spend their entire lives clinging desperately to keep it. That's the contradiction of atheism and science worship. But Christianity declares something science cannot touch. Jesus Christ walked out of the grave. That's not myth. It's recorded history. Eyewitnesses saw him, skeptics touched him, Rome couldn't stop him, and the church exploded in growth despite persecution because they knew death had been defeated. If Jesus didn't rise, then atheism wins and science is all we have. But if he did rise, and he did, then every claim of atheism and every idol of science collapses in a single morning outside a borrowed tomb. Death is beaten. Eternity is real. Hope is alive. Science has limits, but Christ does not. Science can describe the universe, but it cannot explain why it exists. It can measure galaxies, but it cannot measure your worth. It can build weapons, but it cannot build meaning. It can tell you how you die, but it cannot conquer the grave. Atheists call faith blind, but it takes far more blind faith to believe that everything came from nothing, that life came from dead matter, and that morality came from molecules. That is not logic. That is desperation dressed up as reason. Here's the unshakable truth. Science and faith are not enemies. True science is only possible because God designed an orderly universe. Every law of physics whispers his name. Every discovery points to his mind. Every mystery invites us not into chaos, but into worship. And at the center of it all is not a formula. It's a person. Jesus Christ is the Logos, the Word, the reason, the author of every atom and every heartbeat. Without him, your science ends in despair. With him, your science becomes worship. So here's the choice. You can keep bowing to science as a false god, or you can bow to the God who gave science its laws. One leaves you with data and death. The other gives you truth, purpose, and eternal life. The facts are clear. The resurrection is real. The author has spoken. Will you trust science to save you, or will you trust the one who made it?